How they bought it. They're very excited that,
Folks, we're just waiting for all of our board members to join this evening, so we'll get started in a few minutes.
I'm sure. So thank you.
Dr. Jukins, you think we're in a good space?
Only have seen 4, but I am looking for others. I see Commissioner Coy, Esposito, Ames Messenger, and you. If we have any other board members on, if you can make yourself known, that will be helpful to see if we have a quorum.
All right, we should be good to go. So good evening. This is Board Chair Robert Sally. I'd like to welcome you all to the February 11th public board meeting of the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners. If you have not done so, please mute your phone. Anybody who does not mute their phone may be muted by the call moderator or removed from the call. Additionally, if you're not the board member, if not a board member, the CEO and her staff, please turn off your video. I'll now read a roll call of the board to identify who's on the call. Please identify yourself first before speaking for the record. Vice Chair Barker, Commissioner Ames Messenger.
Ames Messenger present.
Thank you. Commissioner Coy,
Commissioner Coy present.
Commissioner Esposito.
Commissioner Esposito present.
Thank you. Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. Commissioner Mohammed.
Commissioner Mohammed present.
Welcome. Commissioner Redding-Lollinger.
Redding-Lollinger present.
Thank you. Commissioner Rooks. Commissioner Slater-Harrington.
Commissioner Slater-Harrington present.
And I'm also present. Is there a motion to reopen the meeting?
So moved, Esposito.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Ames Messenger.
Thank you. All in favor? Commissioner Ames Messenger.
Yes.
Commissioner Coy.
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito.
Yes.
Commissioner Mohammed.
Yes.
Commissioner Redding-Lollinger.
Yes.
Commissioner Slater-Harrington.
Yes.
And I'm in favor. Any opposed? This motion passes. Our moment of silence this evening will be read by Commissioner Ames Messenger.
Student observances, February 11th, 2025. I would like to take a time to recognize the passing of city school students over the last several months. Each of these individuals were part of our school communities. They will be remembered fondly by their greater city schools community. Tonight, we send our deepest condolences to their friends and families. From Southwest Baltimore Public Charter School, Genesis O'Neill. Our lovely Genesis was a second grader at Southwest Baltimore Charter School. He loved nature. He would collect as many rocks and leaves as he could with beautiful colors and crunchy vibes. Genesis brought his class so many laughs. He loved to dance and listen to music. He would sing his favorite songs, mostly the hooks, and he loved the song, Twin, Where Have You Been? He would sing it for days on end. Genesis was a roller coaster of emotions, but you could always count on a good tight hug when you needed it most. It was a true blessing knowing Genesis, even for a short time. Our school community and all of his class friends will miss him dearly. From Moravia Park Elementary School, school number 105, Jacoby Jones. Jacoby was a pre-K kindergarten student from Moravia Park Elementary School. He was a sweet, loving boy whose smile lit up a room. Jacoby loved dinosaurs and school and enjoyed the relationships he formed with his teachers and classmates as a first-year scholar. Jacoby will be truly missed. At the beginning of the school year, Mrs. Marcel, Jacoby's mom, also served as a classroom aide at Moravia Park for a few months. Our hearts and thoughts remain with Jacoby's family and friends, as he will be missed by our Moravia Park community. From Fermanagh Templeton Preparatory Academy, Syed Loudon. Syed Loudon was a second grade student at Fermanagh Templeton Preparatory Academy. He was a fun-loving and well-liked student who excelled in his subject areas, frequently earning honor roll as a young scholar. He loved Spider-Man and the Miami Dolphins football team. He will be remembered most for his mild temper and pleasant character. Saeed will be greatly missed by his family, school community, and friends. We will also take time to recognize the passing of City Schools employees. These individuals were committed to supporting our students through their work. The greater City Schools community will fondly remember these employees. Tonight, we send our deepest condolences to the employees' families and friends. It is with deep regret that we inform you of the passing of Florence Morning. Florence started her career with City Schools on August 28, 1997, where she served the staff and students for 27 years, most recently at the Mount Washington School as a manager in the cafeteria. Ms. Morning unfortunately departed November 25th, 2024, and will be missed by her family, friends, and City Schools. It is with deep regret that we inform you of the passing of Miss Antoinette Tunstall Jennings. Ms. Jennings started her career with City Schools on November 16, 2006, where she served the staff and students for 18 years, most recently at Waverly Elementary School as a paraeducator, preschool students. Ms. Tunstall Jennings unfortunately departed on January 22, 2025, and will be missed by her family, friends, and City Schools.
Thank you, Commissioner Ames Messenger. I appreciate you acknowledging our losses in our community. Is there a motion to approve the closed session summaries?
So moved, Esposito.
Thank you, Commissioner Esposito. Is there a second?
Second, Kenyatta Bay.
I'm so sorry. Just a point of error. Approval of the prior open session minutes. Is there, let me redo that. Is there a motion to approve the prior open session summaries?
So moved, Kenyatta Bay.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll take a first from Kenyatta Bay and a second from Commissioner Esposito. All in favor, Commissioner Ames Messenger,
Yes?
Commissioner Coy,
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay,
Yes.
Commissioner Mohammed,
Yes.
Commissioner Redding Lollinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington,
Yes.
and I'm in favor. This motion passes. Is there a motion to approve the closed session summaries?
So moved, Esposito.
Thank you, Commissioner Esposito. Is there a second?
Ames Messenger, second.
Thank you, Commissioner Ames Messenger. All in favor, Commissioner Ames Messenger,
Yes?
Commissioner Coy,
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay,
Yes.
Commissioner Mohammed,
Yes.
Commissioner Redding Lollinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington, excuse me.
Yes.
Thank you, and I'm in favor. This motion passes. Thank you. So good evening, everybody, and we'd like to welcome you to our February board meeting this evening. And we'd like to thank you all for being here and being willing to join us virtually. So February is the start of Black History Month, a special time for us to reflect and acknowledge the historic and current contributions of Black people around the world. From their inventions, food, music, fashion, spirituality, and art, Black people are a part of the foundation of this country. In fact, many of our Baltimore City students are named after many of our Baltimore City schools are named after Black trailblazers whose achievements in education, civil rights, the arts, and other fields continue to inspire generations to come. To celebrate Black History Month, the district has created a webpage entirely devoted to the Black people whose name and legacies intertwine with the cultures of our school. We invite you to visit the City Schools website to learn more about the historical figures such as Walter P. Carter, Katherine Johnson, and Frederick Douglass, and more. Next up, I just want to remind the public that the board is excited to announce that we will host an off-site public board meeting on February 25th at Digital Harbor High School. We hope that shifting the meeting location, we can increase our engagement and accessibility for all of our audiences and community. There's more details to come about the off-site board meeting and how you can submit public comment that will be available on the board website on City Schools website. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the personnel and employment and payroll agenda?
So moved, Kenyatta Bay.
Thank you, Kenyatta Bay. I'll take a second from Esposito. All in favor? Commissioner Ames Messenger?
Yes?
Thank you. Commissioner Coy?
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito?
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay?
Yes.
Commissioner Mohammed?
Yes.
Commissioner Redding Lollinger?
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington?
Yes.
And I'm in favor. This motion passes. I'll now review the consent agenda. Board colleagues, please let me know if you'd like an item removed, and please state your question for staff. Item 6.01, supplemental appropriation elevators. Item 11.01, Coppin State University. And item 19.01, the community school support. Hearing none, we'll move to public comment. From our recognized groups, I'd like to begin with the Baltimore Teachers Union. I believe Christina Duncan Evans is joining us tonight from BTU.
Greetings and happy Black History Month. My name is Christina Duncan Evans, and I currently serve as the Teacher Chapter Chair for the Baltimore Teachers Union. I'm here tonight representing the BTU's over 8,000 BTU members working in city schools. First, we are pleased to be working collaboratively with the district through joint work groups focused on two critical areas: teacher workload and career pathways for secretaries and office assistants. Addressing teacher workload is essential in the midst of an ongoing educator shortage, when teachers are overburdened with administrative tasks, inadequate planning time, and excessive non-instructional duties. It not only affects instructional quality, but also contributes to burnout and high turnover rates. Similarly, strengthening career pathways for secretaries and office assistants is long overdue. These staff members are the backbone of our schools, providing vital support to students, families, and educators, yet they often lack clear opportunities for professional growth and advancement. By tackling these issues head-on, we can create a more sustainable and effective school system that retains talented professionals and ultimately benefits our students. We are also grateful that the board and BTU have successfully ratified agreements for both chapters. With negotiations hopefully behind us for the remainder of the calendar year, we can now turn our focus to two urgent priorities: the search for the next CEO of Baltimore City Public Schools and ensuring that our students learn in well-resourced, well-run school communities. One critical area that demands attention is the need for increased support for our multilingual students and international staff. Baltimore's immigrant population is growing, and our schools must be equipped to meet the unique needs of multilingual learners and their families. We commend the district for its willingness to meet with the BTU staff regarding professional learning opportunities and licensure needs for our international educators. However, there is still much more to be done. We also want to thank the district for its proactive and positive guidance to staff on immigration enforcement. This guidance not only protects our students, but reaffirms the district's commitment to ensuring that every child, regardless of immigration status, feels safe and supported in our schools. In a time when many immigrant families live in fear due to unpredictable and often hostile federal immigration policies, it is more important than ever that schools remain a place of stability, trust, and refuge. When students and families feel safe in their school communities, they're better able to focus on learning, engage with educators, and fully participate in their education without fear or uncertainty. We commend the district for taking a clear stand in safeguarding our students and look forward to continuing to work together to uphold these essential protections. Tonight, we're calling on the district to dramatically increase its investment in the Multilingual Family Engagement Office, MFEO, expanding its staff from the current 2 positions to a total of 6. The MFEO plays a crucial role in connecting multilingual families with their schools, ensuring access to essential language tools such as LanguageLink and Axie, so that parents and guardians can receive school information in their native language. Beyond language access, the Multilingual Family Engagement Office provides vital programming to welcome newcomer families, build community, and connect multilingual students and families with critical resources in Baltimore City. The current staffing of just 2 people is simply not enough to meet the needs of our rapidly growing immigrant student population, particularly in the context of chaotic and hostile federal immigration policies that have left many families uncertain and in need of additional support. As outlined in the American Federation of Teachers resolution, support for newcomers, asylum seekers, and refugees, immigrant students face immense challenges, including trauma, language barriers, and difficulties navigating a new education system. Schools must be prepared to offer academic, social, and emotional support to ensure these students thrive, and that requires investing in staff who can effectively bridge the gap between families and schools. We appreciate the steps the district has already taken to support multilingual students and educators, but the time for action is now. We urge the district to increase staffing in the multilingual family engagement office from 2 to 6 positions so that we can truly meet the needs of our students and their families. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to continuing to work together towards solutions that benefit all of Baltimore's students, families, and educators.
Thank you so much, Ms. Evans. We appreciate the comments this evening. I believe next up is Ms. Phillips from CCAC.
Good evening. Great good evening to everyone. Dr. Santelises and all the staff and the Board of Commissioners as well. I have a few concerns, but I'm going to talk about the concern first. January 28th, there was a BTU rep who gave a comment concerning CCAT education, special education, as well as transportation. They was under the impression that CCAT is an advocate group, which we are, but we're more or less advisors to the CEO, the commissioners, and the special ed department. We do not fire, we do not hire, we have nothing to do with the staff and related services. So I just want to make that clear. If anybody have any concerns, feel free to contact the CCAT office. Also, the comment was stated that they had been to several meetings. I have a running log of my attendance as well as the ones that's virtual. This person has never been there, and it was misrepresented. CCAT is here to support staff, parents, and students, and I think we do a great job at it. April the 24th, we will be having a transition expo located at the Sheraton Inner Harbor. If anyone need any information, you can contact the CCAT office or the special ed office. They prefer you to register before attending that transition fair. It's for students as well as parents. Also, every year this time, we know we have that state parent survey coming out. We want the parents to be a part of that survey. The survey goes out, it runs from February the 14th to May 25th. If you have not received one in the mail, contact us. We will make sure you will be able to fill out that survey. It's very important for that survey to be done and turned back in a timely manner so that the state will know exactly what the parents need and what the students need. Also, March 10th is our next meeting. It runs from 6 to 8 p.m. We're located at the district office on the 3rd floor, room 301. At that meeting, we will be discussing ESY and have a new name. It's called the Summer Programs. And I think it's going to be very exciting. I encourage you all to come. There's much information for you. Also, we'll be having the lawyer to come, Miss Sandy Belan. She'll be coming from Maryland Disability Rights. No more guardianship. A student has a right to choose. We are to help them choose. We are to help them choose their medical, educational. Just come out and be a part of that meeting. It's going to be a great information and resource for you all. You all have a great night and be safe.
And Ms. Phillips, before you run, one more time, can you give us just time and location? One more time. I just want to make sure we get turnout.
March 10th, 200 East North Avenue, 3rd floor, room 301. I'm looking to see you all there.
All right. All right. Thank you, Ms. Phillips.
Have
We
a great
appreciate
night.
it.
Be
Thank
safe.
you. Be safe. Yes, and snow that's coming. Thank you. Thank you. I now turn it over to Dr. Judkins for our general public comment.
Thank you. Our first public comment will be from Maria Elena Macedo and Judith Escobar. These will be video. Topic is support for multilingual families and school communities.
just want to double check we're hanging tight, right?
Give me 1 second. I'm having a little technical issues. It'll be complete in a moment, okay?
No problem. No problem.
Hola, mi nombre es Marilena Macedo. Yo me siento bien con la escuela de mis hijos como persona y como parte de la comunidad, solo que a veces no me siento bien recibida porque no hablo inglés y a veces no hay quien hable el español. Mi experiencia es muy diferente con las dos comunidades escolares de Charles Carroll y Francis Scott Key. Las dos escuelas ofrecen reuniones para darnos información relacionada con lo que pasará en las escuelas y pedir nuestra opinión, y eso me gusta. La diferencia está en cómo lo hacen. En Charles Carroll hay más interpretación y más oportunidades en español, y en Francis hay menos. Cuando hay más interpretación y personal bilingüe, eso es mejor para sentirse parte de la comunidad escolar. Por ejemplo, en Charles he participado varias veces como en decorar la cafetería, regalar cosas a las familias y aún limpiar la escuela. Pero así como uno apoya, así queremos que ellos nos apoyen con personas que hablan español, porque las personas que están ahora que hablan español no es suficiente. Necesitamos más personal que hable en español en Francis Scott Key. Gracias.
Hola, me llamo Judith Escobar. Yo no he tenido mala experiencia con mis niños. En su escuela no es perfecto, pero hay recursos y comunidad que apoya todo y posibilidades. Mi experiencia ha sido en otra escuela de la ciudad. Yo trabajaba de limpieza como contratista en una escuela del oeste de Baltimore City. He visto que han llegado padres para hablar con las profesoras sobre casos serios de acoso y otros problemas graves. No le han dado la importancia porque el personal no habla español y no hay intérpretes. En esta escuela, los de la oficina nos llamaron a nosotras como de limpieza para poderles ayudar a traducir. Me da mucha pena ver los padres de sentirse que no pueden hallar soluciones por falta de no tener personal bilingüe.
Thank you. Our next public comment, we have 3 speakers. This will also be a video. Irma Maldonado, Yesenia Aguilar, Blanca Rivas. Topic will also be support for multilingual families and school communities.
Buenas tardes. Soy una madre de estudiante de la escuela de Baltimore City. Mi hija, durante el tiempo que estuve estudiando ahí, otro estudiante la acosó de manera sexual. Yo no tenía a alguien que me ayudara o recibiera con este problema en mi idioma. Durante el proceso, la señora de la limpieza me ayudó con la interpretación. Todo el proceso fue traumático para mi hija y para mí. Y me gustaría que nos den más apoyo, porque no soy la única. No soy la única madre que pasa por este proceso. Necesitamos más ayuda. Mi hija el día de hoy se encuentra en la escuela digital. Me siento más apoyada, pero también necesito más apoyo y recursos por la misma ansiedad. Yesenia Aguilar, tengo dos sobrinas, una en Francis Scott en séptimo grado. Desafortunadamente ya no me siento tranquila. En la escuela hay mucha inseguridad. Ellas son parte de mi vida diaria. Me daría pena si algo pasa. Es por eso que alzo mi voz para mejorar la seguridad. La seguridad se complica más cuando la familia no habla en inglés. Es difícil comunicar nuestras inquietudes y quejas. También es difícil ser parte de la solución si no hay intérprete y buena comunicación en la escuela. Y me gustaría que mejorara en ese aspecto. Gracias.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Blanca Rivas. Soy la mamá de 4 niños. Tenía 2 niños en el High School de Now. Ya. Y tengo mis 2 niñas pequeñas que también todavía siguen estudiando. Quería hablar sobre la seguridad que nos falta en las escuelas y estoy muy preocupada no solamente por mis hijas que todavía siguen estudiando, sino que también por otros niños que llegan a estudiar a las escuelas, y no solamente por seguridad de los niños que vienen a las escuelas, sino que también los maestros son víctimas de muchas cosas que pasan en las escuelas. Que nos ayude a que tengamos algo más de seguridad en las escuelas, como algunos detectores metálicos, por ejemplo, para que cada niño o adolescente o joven que entra al high school o escuela elementary o middle school puedan checar lo que llevan los niños para que no haya peligro ni nada, ningún accidente dentro de las escuelas.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Griselda Buez, Christina Galvez, and Miriam Badillo, support for multilingual families and school communities.
Me gusta mucho la escuela. Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Griselda Hueso. Soy madre de un niño en la escuela. Mi hijo le gusta mucho la escuela y ha logrado mucho. Yo exijo que haya más personas que hablen español en la escuela. Por ejemplo, en el sentido de asuntos médicos, es un aspecto de suma importancia y básico tener a alguien que hable español. Por ejemplo, mi hijo se puso mal y no le dieron su inhalador porque no tenía la prescripción médica todavía. Cuando fui a dejar los medicamentos y el plan de asma, la enfermera no pudo atenderme y tampoco tenía los formularios en español. Tampoco sabía cómo hacer con el servicio de interpretación del intérprete. Somos afortunados al tener algunos maestros que intentan ayudarnos y responden a nuestros mensajes de texto en español por traducción, pero en caso de emergencia o como el día está a veces muy ocupado, no siempre hay esa ayuda. Traducción por texto, por los apps como Google Translate, no funciona muy bien y se frustran mucho. No hay nadie que atienda en la oficina principal. Yo veo que es sumamente difícil para el personal, tanto como para los padres, cuando no hay una persona que sea bilingüe. El personal intenta ayudar, pero no siempre es igual. Tener a alguien que hable español sería de suma importancia para nosotros y nos facilitaría más cuando se trate de exponer algo sobre la educación de nuestros hijos.
Hola, mi nombre es Cristina Galvez. Tengo 2 estudiantes en la escuela de Digital Harvard, el grado 9 y 10. Y pues me gustaría que tuvieran más comunicación en mi idioma, porque a veces voy a la escuela, yo pregunto y lamentablemente solo hay un intérprete, solo la secretaria, y la secretaria no se puede hacer en 1000 pedazos. Entonces me gustaría que tuviera más intérpretes en mi idioma para yo poder ir a las reuniones en la escuela de mis hijos. Me gustaría ayudarlo, mi hijo, en esa parte, pero me gustaría que los maestros estuvieran en comunicación, pero vuelvo y lo repito, en mi idioma, y para yo saber cómo ayudar a mi hijo.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Miriam Badillo, soy madre latina, tengo 2 hijos en las escuelas de Baltimore City, uno en high school y otro en middle school. Cuando vamos a la oficina central, ¿dónde están las personas que nos tengan que ayudar en nuestro idioma? Literalmente cuando entramos no hay nadie que nos ayude en nuestro idioma. y cuando llegamos como hispanos y nos miran, siempre nos hacen a un lado. Entonces, queremos saber cómo nos van a apoyar, cómo podemos confiar en el sistema de las escuelas de Baltimore City cuando el problema lo tenemos ahí.
Thank you. Our next public comment, we have 4 speakers: Angela Salazar, Clara De Leon, Brenda Juarez, Erica Corrado. Topic again, support for multilingual families and school communities.
Ángela Salazar, y tengo 2 estudiantes en escuelas públicas y tengo una sugerencia para la escuela, que hubiera un intérprete para ayudar y escuchar las diferentes inquietudes que muchos padres guardan en sus corazones, porque un buen trato hace la diferencia para el desarrollo académico de nuestros hijos. Aquí en la escuela Charlie le brindan mucho apoyo emocional y han trabajado muy fuerte con mi hijo que tiene discapacidad, y quisiera agradecerle por lo que me han apoyado con mi hijo. Gracias.
Me llamo Clara de León y tengo un hijo en el Digital Harvard. Quiero compartir que me siento feliz de ser parte de Digital. Aprendizaje de mi hijo es más fácil cuando hay personas que hablan español. Eso ayuda a las familias mucho. Gracias.
Hola, me llamo Brenda Juárez y mi hijo va a la escuela Franklin Scott. Soy una madre orgullosa e involucrada en la educación de mi hijo. He ido a las reuniones para familia en mi escuela, pero me quedo igual. ¿Por qué? No hay nadie que me diga lo que dicen en la reunión. Todas hablan inglés y no hay quien me diga las cosas o lo que mi hijo necesita, porque tendré que estar informada de lo que pasa en la escuela. A veces hay alguien que habla un poquito en español, pero no puedo traducir, interpretar para que la familia hispana entienda. Mi niño está muy feliz en la escuela. Hay varias actividades que le gustan, pero yo necesito entender a las reuniones que no hay quien explique. Gracias.
Hola, mi nombre es Erika Corrado. Tengo 2 hijos, uno en Mary G. Fair y el otro aquí en Digital Harvard. A pesar de la población grande de estudiantes latinos, a veces falta la interpretación y por eso, por falta de intérpretes, a veces uno deja de asistir a las reuniones. Entonces yo pido que haya más gente que le ayude a uno. Así también le agradezco a Miss Cortés y a otras personas que me reciben en mi idioma. Y quiero que haya más gente como ella. Ahora hay muchas personas que hablan español en la escuela y no se dan abasto para atender a toda la gente que no puede hablar inglés.
Thank you. And our last public comment will be from Shelley Ann Higgins. Topic will be City Schools International Community.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Big up on yourself. My name is Shelley Ann Higgins, and I'm a teacher at Excel Academy at Francis M. Wood High School, school number 178. First, let me start by saying Happy Black History Month. I'm coming to you today to speak on an issue that is near and dear to me. That is the state of the international community. Students, parents, and teachers alike are in desperate need of additional resources and consideration from the district, especially in these unprecedented times. Immigrants in this country are under attack from the current administration of the United States. The announcement that was sent out about what to do if ICE came knocking was well received by the school community. However, now more than ever, our international community of staff needs to have some sense of safety and security regarding their futures. There needs to be more communication sent out to those international teachers and staff, giving them reassurance of their rights and status. The question of what if this political administration starts going after people with certain visas are in a lot of their minds. It is not outside the realm of possibilities that this could occur. especially given the fact that the targeted attacks on immigrants seem to involve predominantly Black and brown people, which happens to be the very individuals who make up most of our international community. Sending a strong message of support to the international staff would be very reassuring. Here are some additional considerations that would be beneficial to the aforementioned students, parents, teachers, and staff. 1, more translations when accessing city school portals and resources. 2, more multilingual support for ESOL special education students and their families. 3, transportation to navigate getting to and from work for staff, especially on days like Thursday, when there is professional development. Many of the international staff are unfamiliar with the off-campus sites that they have to attend for their particular content or discipline. 4, adding at least 4 staff members to the office that provide services and programs for multilingual community so that they can offer more robust resources and assistance to the member of those communities. Currently, there are only 2 staff members that are divided between almost 200 schools in the district. This is insufficient. The international community is very important to our school district and to Baltimore community and country as a whole. This is a time that we should do everything we can to ensure they are protected and given the resources they need to thrive and survive, as well as to strive to maintain and attain life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you.
And that was our last public comment, Chair.
Thank you so much. I want to thank our entire multilingual community for providing public comment this evening. It's very helpful for the board to gain these insights in terms of how we can better support multilingual learners inside of schools and our families as well. So we do appreciate those public comments this evening. Based on public comments, are there any additional items board members would like to pull from the consent agenda before we vote on them? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda?
Ames Messenger, so moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Ames Messenger. Is there a second?
Second, Kenyatta Bay.
I'll take Kenyatta Bay. Thank you. All in favor, Commissioner Ames Messenger?
Yes.
Commissioner Coy?
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito?
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay?
Yes.
Commissioner Mohammed?
Yes.
Commissioner Redding Lollinger?
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm also in favor. This motion passes. I would like to now turn it over to Dr. Santelises for CEO comments.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite Chief Emily Nielsen for this evening's PEP agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Santelises, and good evening, Board of Commissioners. If you are on tonight's PEP, if you can turn your camera on when I read your name so we can acknowledge you, please. From the Office of the Chief of Schools, an appointment recommended that Tara Williams, currently Educational Associate 12 months at P-TECH at Carver Vocational Technical High School, be appointed Assistant Principal, P-TECH at Carver Vocational Technical High School, effective February 24th, 2025. An interim appointment recommended that Latoya Gale, currently Assistant Principal at Green Street Academy, be appointed Interim Principal at Green Street Academy, effective February 24th, 2025 to June 30th, 2025. And an appointment from the Office of the Chief Operations Officer. Christopher Roberts, currently Director of Facilities Support Services, Baltimore County Public Schools, be appointed Director, Building Maintenance and Inspections, effective February 24th, 2025. Congratulations to everyone on tonight's PEP agenda.
Great. Thank you so much, Chief Nielsen, and congratulations, everyone. And now I am very pleased to begin this evening or continue with good news regarding the progress of our youngest learners in this year's Kindergarten Readiness Assessment. As we know it, the KRA. City schools achieved our highest overall rate of kindergarten readiness in 9 years. And the results for students who attended city schools pre-K programs were even stronger, with large increases in kindergarten readiness among Black students and economically disadvantaged students, as well as our multilingual learners. I would now like to call upon Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Joan Dabrowski, and Executive Director of Early Learning, Crystal Francis, to provide some highlights from this year's assessment. Chief Dabrowski and Executive Director Francis, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Santelises. Good evening, board chair and commissioners and to the public. We're very excited to be with you this evening to share some wonderful news about our young learners. It's my privilege to be able to turn this presentation over to Ms. Crystal Francis, the Executive Director of the Office of Early Learning, to walk you through these wonderful results.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Dr. Santelises. Good evening, everyone. We are very excited to share this new news with you all. So first, just to kind of get ourselves grounded, the KRA, as we know it, our Kindergarten Readiness Assessment, is an assessment that we administer for our kindergarten students every year. We administer that within the first couple of weeks of school, and these are the areas that we measure: language and literacy, math, social foundations, and physical well-being and motor development. I do want to share that this year, the state of Maryland actually did not administer the assessment while they were looking for an additional assessment to use. They actually weren't able to get an assessment for this year, but here within city schools, it was really important for us to continue to be able to show just the good work that our pre-K students have been doing. So we did administer the assessment this year. Next slide. And so why is the KRA important? It really does help us to be able to identify where, how our youngest learners are learning. And so it helps us to be able to inform for our students just their strengths and challenges. We are able to look at learning gaps and needs. It really does support our professional development as we are thinking about how we continue to support students once they get into kindergarten. And additionally, utilizing these scores and the things that we learn here really help us to make decisions within our Baltimore City community around early childhood programs. Next slide. So this is one of our favorite slides to share, and this tells us why kindergarten matters. When we're thinking about our youngest learners, we often don't think about what it means when we get to third grade or high school or long term. And so this just shows us that the impact that we are having within pre-K and in kindergarten really does have long-term effects. So when we think about our students and those who are demonstrating readiness on KRA, they are actually 4.8 times more likely to be proficient on those third grade literacy on those scores. So we see the really direct connection between all of the work that we're doing when we are setting a really, really strong foundation in pre-K and how those long-term impacts impact our students once they get into third grade and then on to high school. Next slide. And so this is just the update that I wanted to give to everyone. Again, Maryland shifted for KRA. We will actually have a new assessment for next year, and we'll talk about that a little later. But again, city schools made the decision to administer that assessment for this year, and we're actually really, really happy with those results. Okay, and this is what we've all been waiting for. So this year for our KRA, our students who attended our non-Judy Center pre-K programs were 53.4% demonstrating readiness. We are very excited about that number. We're just continuing to tick up since we have come back from the pandemic and are really focusing on recovery. Our students who attended any of our city schools pre-K programs were demonstrating readiness at 52%. And all of our city schools kindergarten students, and these are students who came from childcare, Head Start, who were at home, all of our students were at 45% readiness. So we continue to see wonderful gains and increases. So again, amongst all of our city schools kindergarten students, we are seeing a +6% change from last year's scores to this year. And for our students between that first year when we did the assessment post-pandemic up through last year, which was the last year that we have the kind of scores from the state of Maryland, we had a 16 percentage point increase. And then again, if we tack on what we've been able to do this year, since the pandemic, we have had a 22% increase in our kindergarten readiness scores for those pre-K students. So just really, really phenomenal work that's been happening in our earliest grades. So here we just wanted to show again the slide. I think you all have seen this, but we wanted to keep on showing it to you. If you look at that wonderful and bold kind of red line in the middle, that is our city schools pre-K students. The light blue slide is all of our city schools kiddos. The pink slide is our city schools pre-K students. And again, the state of Maryland, they did not administer the assessment for this school year, so that's why we don't have a data point there, but just wanted to continue to show that we are trending in the right direction. And so not only were we happy to see this increase, we also were able to see the increase in many of our student groups. So our Black and African American students, multilingual learner, and our economically disadvantaged students. So when we think about what it means for our students to be ready, we oftentimes kind of compare ourselves to, the rest of our students here within the state of Maryland. And what we know is that when we control for all student demographics, so this is kind of when we are sort of leveling the playing field here within the city of Baltimore. We know that our students who attend our Judy Center pre-K programs are 28.1% more likely to demonstrate that readiness. And our students who attend our city schools pre-K programs are 24.6% more likely to demonstrate readiness. So essentially what that says for us is when kiddos come to our pre-K programs, that we really are the best place to be able to get them prepared. So we wanted to give just a quick couple of highlights about what are driving our results here in pre-K. And so this school year, we actually adopted a new high quality instructional material. It is called Frog Street. If you have seen our social media, you've probably seen frogs all over the place, but that is because it's connected to our new curriculum. And we chose it because it is inclusive of all of our core subjects. When we think about young children, they learn all together. And so we wanted to make sure that their curriculum included everything. And it also has principles of conscious discipline so that we can really start working on that social emotional learning as young as 4 years old for our students. It does align with the science of reading. And this school year, we've just really dove into our professional learning with our teachers and paraeducators and our school leaders as well. So one of the things that we did a few years ago, again, once we kind of started coming back from the pandemic, was we really shifted our professional learning. We created learning tracks for our teachers and paraeducators a few school years ago. And we found that once we were really just honing in and focusing in on our content and increasing our pedagogy, that has really been behind kind of driving our results. So we were hyper focused on literacy and math, also focusing in on inclusion because we have students who are coming to us from all walks of life, and we want to ensure that we are able to educate them in our pre-K programs and classrooms. And additionally, the Office of Early Learning staff began doing walkthroughs with school leaders in schools. And so about every school year, we are walking in hundreds of classrooms with school leaders, giving real-time feedback and kind of following up to ensure that we're continuing to just push the needle on high-quality instruction in pre-K. Of course, our Judy centers are a huge impact into these KRA scores. So all of our Judy centers do really thorough dives into their KRA data once they get it. And from that, they are doing really intentional planning for their students. This year, we have introduced play groups for our 0 to 3 population in particular. And so we are seeing those students who are with us when they are 0 to 3, when they matriculate up with us into pre-K and kindergarten, it really is paying paying off for us in dividends. And a lot of our GD centers have been focused on parents. They have a huge focus on dads. And so we really have found some of these formulas are really what's helping us to be able to move the needle with our GD centers. And we have continued to do extended learning opportunities with our Camp Curiosity program, which provides summer support for our rising pre-K and rising kindergarten students, where there are some kind of summer programs within the city that don't serve students who are 4 and 5 years old. We have really filled in that gap, and kids are able to learn a lot hands-on and then also have a lot of fun. Next slide. So next year, we will be implementing kind of the new KRA. And so we are just learning from the state about this assessment, but it is called Renaissance. And so these are the components. There is Renaissance literacy, Renaissance math, and then it also measures social, academic, and emotional behavior for students. So it will have the same administration dates as the previous KRA. So it will start the first day of school, and then go through October 10th. That is actually written into the blueprint legislation. And one thing that is a bit different is that teachers will actually have real-time feedback and access to data, where we previously kind of had to wait for everything to kind of send it to the state and run through all of the different kind of data rigmarole. We'll no longer have to do that. It can be administered on some devices, so it can be administered on a computer or a laptop or a tablet. And so it doesn't necessarily need to be something that's touchscreen. So kind of our next move is really to start looking at our kindergarten classrooms and really do an inventory of the technology that they have within their classrooms, just to ensure that we are ready to go when it's time to implement this assessment. And for this first year, MSDE will be the ones who are providing the professional development. And we just have to work with them once we get our school calendar set to ensure that we can get those dates. But it will likely be during that pre-service week before our students come back, but when our teachers are here with us. Okay, I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Are there any quick questions from the board? Okay. Oh, Commissioner Lollinger. Oh.
Thanks so much. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Thanks so much, Ms. Francis. Thanks so much for that presentation, and congratulations on the continued growth. I know our numbers are really impressive in the state context, so just very, very excited about that. Two quick questions. One is curious about if you have learned anything about relative strengths and relative weaknesses in our pre-K program based on the more granular results. I know KRA has several domains. There's math, there's early literacy. I think there's social emotional readiness and physical. So there's several domains, and I'm just curious if you can tell us anything about whether or not you or your team have identified relative areas of strength and weakness. And then the other one is, I'm just curious about the sort of variation across our programs in the district, and what the data may tell us about the variation in quality, to the extent that you think that we could actually make that assessment. I mean, obviously you'd want to account for a lot of other factors too, but I'm just curious how widely this, how widely it varies, given that this is an average. Thank you.
Sure. So when we think about the strengths and weaknesses, the things that we've kind of learned over the years, one of the areas where our students have struggled has been in kind of like the rhyming words portion of literacy. And so that's just an area that we found every year that our students really had a hard time with. So a few years ago, we started implementing Heggerty intervention, which actually really dives in and focuses on that. So the good thing about being able to look at these results like high level is that we're actually able to make some of those real-time adjustments and really start thinking about what are the things that we need to plan for and prepare for our students. We also, for the last couple of years, have done like a vertical planning PD with our pre-K and kindergarten teachers. So after we get our KRA scores, we kind of have the kindergarten teachers bring that data with them. And then we have our pre-K teachers meet together so that we can actually sit down kind of like school by school, dive into your own data, and then think about what is the thing that your pre-K teacher actually needs to spend a bit more time on for those students so that she can, or they can ensure that they're getting them ready. So those are some of the things that we have implemented that we've learned over the years, like make sense kind of within each individual school context. And the variation we see, honestly, just has to do a lot with so things like attendance. Attendance is a huge indicator and driver of how our students score. So when we have students who are chronically absent, their attendance actually isn't amazing. So I try to tell people all the time, just show up, and you're gonna get like 11 points just by showing up. So like those are just some of the things that we see as being factors. I think it also just where students come from, of course. So again, the students who attend our pre-K programs tend to score higher, while students who go to other prior care settings, it tends to look a little bit different. But our hope is that we have really strong curricula, which is why we really wanted to move to something that was kind of standardized across all of our classrooms so that we could ensure that whether you're on the east side or the west side, that you're getting that same really high quality content.
Commissioner Esposito?
Hello. My son's currently in pre-K, and I was wondering, like, I know from our experience, like, one of the challenges with attendance is, you know, especially this season, like getting illness. Is there anything that like parents can do at home to support pre-K kiddos that are building up their immune systems and also like maybe missing school because of, you know, like during this season?
Yes, amazing question, and thank you for asking that. So the other reason why we also love Frog Street is because it has such a really strong parent and family component. So all of our students actually got a little book bag at the beginning of the year that was kind of our inclement weather book bag, but also can be used in case of emergency book bag. So it has a ton of resources in there. Also with every unit, there's like a welcome letter to parents that goes out for them. So there are activities that parents can do. And there's also an online kind of parent-facing portal that just has kind of hours and hours and hours of activities that families can do. So we can definitely put something together so that parents just have a quick reference for what to do in case of flu or emergency or you know, weather. But there are so many resources that parents can do at home just to keep that learning going.
Thank you. That'd be awesome.
Great. Well, Crystal, want to thank you and Chief Dabrowski for the presentation. And I had a chance to come to the Frog Street professional development session with teachers this summer, and just the dedication, the focus, and just really digging in, and the community. I will say I still have my frogs on the seat in my office. And they have become part of the CEO Suite family. So we're glad to see it, but just great news overall. We're going in the right direction year after year. Our KRA results really help us provide the targeted instruction, as well as give us the kind of information that I think Commissioner Lollinger was also referencing, and that is where are the places where we need to dig in, and it really helps us adjust. So just want to shout out you, all of our pre-K teachers across the city, and the entire pre-K team. Nicely done. So now moving to next week, we will launch our annual United Way City Schools fundraising campaign to benefit families across Baltimore City and Central Maryland. We know the importance of this campaign, and I am pleased to welcome Dr. Andrea Bowden, United Way Chair for City Schools, Michelle Martin, Senior Relationship Manager for United Way, and Ms. Amritha Mohandas, which I hope I said your name properly, Assistant Director of Planned and Major Gifts for United Way, to just give us an overview as we launch this year's campaign. Thank you all for coming.
I think Amrita is the first speaker.
Oh, okay. Yep.
I'll take it away. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. I think it would be remiss if I didn't start by saying how collaborative Baltimore City Public Schools has been with United Way. While I don't work personally with all of you, my colleague Michelle Martin does, and I've heard her regularly praise the great work that all of you do for Central Maryland, and also working with United Way for, I would say, over 10 years now. So thank you so much. We are thoroughly grateful for all the work you do. I also just wanted to quickly thank Dr. Sandra Santilisis, I hope I'm saying that right, Dr. Andrea Bowden, and Jim Brennan for making this campaign possible year after year. So thank you so much. My name is Amrita Mohandas. I am the Assistant Director for Planned and Major Gifts here at United Way. And thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time this evening. I know that you have an upcoming workplace campaign, and it's a terrific tie-in with our 100th anniversary that we have in United Way. And I would like to share a little good news that we have in this campaign. As of today, we have hit 20.2 million. So that is we have passed our 20 million campaign for our 100th anniversary. Now, before I get into the crux of how we are spending this money in Central Maryland, I wanted to give you a quick lay of the ground of what the campaign is all about. This campaign basically celebrates a century of service while shaping the future of Central Maryland. It is an endowment-led campaign, and it is focused on expanding and securing United Way's impact. They do that by ensuring lasting support for individuals and families within Central Maryland. I would say it's more than just a celebration. It's actually a call to build the next future, the next century, and the change and the opportunity that comes with it. So we can go on to the next slide. Perfect. Ooh, that's a bit jumbled up, but I just want to give you a sense on the right-hand side of your screen of where the money is being utilized from this 20 million. There are a couple of highlighted programs, as you can see here, and where some of the 100th anniversary money is going to and will be utilized, but are not limited to just these programs. So I'm just going to quickly highlight two of the programs. The first being a United Way program called the Veterans Treatment Court. And we're expanding from 2 sites to 6 sites. Michelle Martin will be happy to share with you more on what we do with the Veterans Treatment Court and how that impacts a lot of the kids and families within Central Maryland. The second one that I wanted to tap on is our family stability centers that we have in Central Maryland, and we're giving them a new bus for students to actually come to school to drop off their kids and actually go into school during that time. So I'll have you know that a lot of the fundraising efforts will continue in 2025, and this campaign with Baltimore City Public Schools, I think from February to March, will be the icing on the cake for this campaign for sure. And we're not stopping at 20 million because there's an extraordinary need and uncertainty in the community right now, as we all can imagine. So with your partnership, we will be there and ready to support a lot of the communities within Central Maryland. The 100th anniversary campaign is how we are trying to ensure that we have a next century of great work as well as impact in Central Maryland. So thank you so much for all the work that you do and for all the great leadership and preparing our next generation for what is to come. So if you have any questions on the 100th anniversary campaign, feel free to direct them to me or Michelle Martin. I know there will be more stats and data or information on the workplace campaign that's coming up, but I feel that somebody else is sharing that information. But if you have any other information or you need any information from me in regards to the 100th anniversary campaign, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email address in the chat, so So yeah, I hope that works. Thank you.
So, good evening again. Here is the Baltimore City Schools team that's leading this. Dr. Santelises has been a longtime supporter of United Way and continues to be. Jim Brennan is the man in the central office that links United Way and Baltimore City Schools. He's the man who is the link for payroll for the organization to organization interaction, and he's invaluable in this effort. This year, we have 2 new co-chairs. Kia Glaze, who is the assistant principal at Baltimore Polytechnic. She has led Poly to greater heights in giving. We have Davia Stevens, who is a new coordinator at Claremont School, and have incredible fundraisers, very, very creative. So we're looking to good things from them. I'd like to thank Mavis Jackson, the principal at Digital Harbor, and David Verdi, now principal of Douglas High School, were our immediate past co-chairs. We work closely with Michelle Martin from United Way, and she has really developed relationships with our schools and our coordinators. Next, please. The campaign will run February 17th to April 18th. Our goal is $100,000, consistent with the 100th anniversary of United Way. Next slide. Here is a chart of the recent years of giving. You will notice, first of all, that the participation percentage has risen, the amount has risen, the dollars from fundraising has risen, and the gifts over $1,000 has risen. So our goal, as I said, is $100,000, and all of this is possible because of the generosity of Baltimore City Schools staff. Next, please. These are the outstanding schools and sites. All of these places have a coordinator who knows how to get donations from the staff. For some of it, it's a pledge. Some of it, it's an activity. But if you will look at this, there's quite a diversity of sites, and there was quite a diversity of ways that staff members were influenced to give. We have the over 3,000 schools and sites. We have over $2,000 schools and sites. Next slide. We have over $1,000, at least $500. And over on the far right, we have 2 sites where their principals and their coordinators influenced every staff member to make a contribution. That is noteworthy. Thank you all. Next, please. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Michelle Martin. She's going to explain specifically what the dollars that come from Baltimore City Schools are used for. Michelle?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Here at United Way, your donations, when you give to United Way, if you give to us directly, you have the opportunity to give to us directly or give to your charity. But if you give to us directly, your donations go to support the 5 major areas here, which entail 211, health, housing, economic advancement, and education. 211, of course, is our free help hotline here. Anywhere in the state of Maryland, you can dial, of course, 211, and you can get services or assistance with a variety of topics that you may need help. We take over about 440 calls a day on that request line for things such as housing help with rental payments, rental assistance, gas and electric payments, Some people call for childcare, looking for childcare in their communities, things like that. I know we're running a little bit behind, so I'm not going to hit all of them. Education, of course, which you all are familiar with. We have several programs within, a couple of programs within the public school systems. One, of course, you all are familiar with, Young Men United, has been doing really, really well. We just had an update today. We have 75 participants, and we are looking to expand. Coming with the new year, we're looking to expand into a couple more schools and add in another 50 more cohorts in September. So that's exciting. We also, of course, as Amrita said, they're looking to get a bus for the family centers, which also falls under the education piece. Economic advancement is about partnering with some of our businesses to provide people who are looking for jobs and businesses who need to fill positions. So we're trying to make a connection there as well. So I also want to say thank you for your partnership and your support every year. And it has been a great time helping you guys with your campaign this year. You can go to the next slide. And I can talk about this too. So what does your donation help when you give an amount? So for just $60, just a one-time fee of $60, you can provide 2 weeks of healthy lunches for one of those toddlers in one of the family centers at Excel Academy or Ben Franklin High School. If you give $175, it covers transportation needs for a veteran in our Veteran Treatments Court. $260 connects 5 middle school students to skill building mentorships in our On Track for Success program. And in our Young Men United program, $1,000 will purchase laptops and school supplies for that participant. Next slide. Hey, Andrea, back to you.
Okay, how do we get your money, basically? The simplest way is to pledge online. It comes out of your paycheck. You shouldn't even miss it. It's secure, it's efficient. Some people don't like to pledge online. We provide paper forms. Some people like to attach a check or give us their credit card number. Some people really enjoy interacting with other people at a fundraiser or a special event. So whatever way you are willing to give, we're basically willing to take your money to support the United Way. There are many fundraisers, as I said, and we'll be rolling out a new one after we get full approval, and it has to do with shooting hoops. So we urge you to give in whatever manner you wish. Next slide. So basically, with United Way, we can create lasting change for a better tomorrow. And I appeal to all staff members in Baltimore City to give generously as you have before. Thank you. If there are any questions, we'll handle them.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Bowden. We appreciate, again, all of the work that you do and the full team does. And we look forward to Team City Schools coming out again this year. So thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Welcome.
Wonderful. And now, just to end my comments this evening, I do want to take some time and privilege, just a little bit, to acknowledge and really commemorate the passing, as difficult as it is, of Tim Tootin, a longtime reporter here in Baltimore City. And Tim was a true journalist. One of the things that City Schools benefited from was his professionalism, his commitment to full truth. Tim not only didn't believe in clickbait, he believed in making sure that the public knew the importance of schools for our community's vitality. He always had a smile. I think we have some pictures of him this summer with his Stuff the Bus campaign, when even in retirement, and what a fabulous picture. This is classic Tim Tootin. Even when he retired, he made sure that he used his presence, his career, his expertise, and his love and knowledge of Baltimore City to benefit the entire community of Baltimore City. Tim believed in the power of people. I am personally grateful, thankful for having known him. For someone who was such a professional in the field of journalism, he was also just an amazing man. His life was really a letter and an instruction guide on how you blend your faith, your love of humanity, expertise in your field, and combine that with just an amazing love of family and commitment. And there were times where I would run into both he and his wife during family runs with our girls and BJ's, and he was always there with an expert piece of advice and commitment. He understood the importance of family, both as a man of faith and a pastor, as well as just a man who understood that the importance of the next generation was one that was top of everyone's list. I want to send a heartfelt thank you to his wife, his children, his grandchildren, to the BAL family who just gave him the outlet and the podium to be the face of schools. I talked to the mayor today, and we actually both agreed that there should be a commemorative calling of school for the next snow day. This is not to say we'll have one tomorrow, but whenever the next one is, because Tim always had his classic school paraphernalia when he would announce snow days and became famous across the region for that. So Tim Tootin, you are a standard of excellence. We will miss you, and thank you so much for the way that you loved this city and you loved our children, and you brought attention to education with integrity and power. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Chair, for the remainder of this evening's board meeting.
Thank you so much. I just also want to take a point of privilege to just acknowledge his passing in terms of the deep commitments to our entire community across Baltimore and for city schools. He's been just a true champion of our children, our families, our communities, and what's possible here in Baltimore. So he'll be deeply missed. I would like to just move us forward in the agenda this evening, and I'm going to actually turn it back to Chief Dabrowski to lead us through a discussion on item 9.01 on the proposed school year calendar for school year 25-26 and 26-27. Just want to remind both my board colleagues and the public that this is not a vote this evening. This is an information item. There will be time and opportunity for discussion with the board and staff following the presentation. Chief Dabrowski.
Thank you so much, Chair Sally. Good evening again. I'm Joan Dabrowski, Chief Academic Officer. I'm pleased to be joined this evening by our Deputy Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Taisha Swinton-Buck, and our Director of Grading, Assessment, and Scheduling, Mr. Simon Berenbaum. Dr. Swinton-Buck and Mr. Berenbaum will be leading us through this calendar presentation. So I will toss it to you, Dr. Swinton-Buck.
Thank you so much, Chief Dabrowski, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present the proposed calendar. And as Chief shared, I'm Dr. Swinton-Buck, Deputy Chief Academic Officer, and Simon Berenbaum is here with me, and we will be walking through our calendar recommendations for school year 25-26 and 26-27. So here's our agenda. During this presentation, we will cover state and local calendar requirements, stakeholder engagement, and our calendar recommendations and next steps. And as you know, our calendar development reflects a balance of state requirements, stakeholder input, and just our overall commitment to student success while addressing the various needs of our stakeholders. Next slide. Our calendar recommendation aligns with City Schools' strategic priorities, particularly Priority 1, as well as Priorities 4 through 7. The proposed calendar in our development process aligns with board priorities by ensuring high-quality instruction through uninterrupted learning, engaging stakeholders in decision-making, and providing equitable access to academic opportunities. It also expands educational programming with structured professional learning and wellness days while promoting equity and inclusion and strengthening our religious observance accommodations and cultural awareness. Next slide. Here are our district goals, which are grounded in increasing student connectedness, literacy and math achievement, and graduation rates. And these goals remain at the core of our decision-making process for our calendar development. And I also like to share that just a well-structured calendar supports instructional momentum by ensuring continuous learning and strategic teacher planning and equitable access to resources, while also thoughtfully balancing wellness and student engagement. And all of that is at the core of the work that we do and is also visible in our district goals. Next slide. Now, I will share some pertinent information around the development of our calendar recommendation. Next slide. Okay, so we are currently in the information and discussion phase. The board will vote, and that is scheduled for February 25th, which will be hosted at Digital Harbor High School, go Rams, with a final submission to the Maryland State Department of Education in the spring. Next slide. All right, so here is what we know. When shaping the calendar, there are important considerations we have to account for, and these include state requirements, like the minimum of 180 instructional days for our students, the mandated holidays, and also our union agreements. Additionally, we have to ensure that the calendar supports attendance and overall student engagement while respecting religious observances and accommodating inclement weather. Next slide. So when we look at our state and local calendar requirements, as I shared before, schools must have at least 180 school days and 1,080 school hours over a 10-month period with a minimum of 4 hours open each school day. They are not required to operate on weekends or holidays to meet these requirements. When we look at our COMAR mandated holidays, schools must be closed for designated holidays, and you'll see those specific holidays under the red header on the slide. And we're also guided by our contractual agreements. And so we know that our teacher contract sets a maximum of 190 work days, which include 10 professional development days, which have to be accounted for in our calendar. So as you can see, the requirements shared are like the foundational guidelines for ensuring that schools meet the minimum instructional time needed for student learning and academic progress. And so when we started our development, these were the key requirements that kind of set the foundation for where we started to build out and think about the priorities that were reflective in the calendar recommendation. Next slide. And ultimately, our primary goal is student learning. And so all calendar decisions are made with that in mind. And as we designed the school year calendar, our foremost commitment was to prioritize student learning every step of the way. And while we often navigated competing priorities during this process, and you saw that with the different requirements that we had to think through, our focus always remained on what's best for our students, right? And how do we build a calendar that supports an instructional momentum where students have uninterrupted learning, but we're also thinking about the various stakeholder needs. So we want to give time for professional learning. We also want to give time for wellness. And so those are the priorities that we had discussions around when we began our stakeholder engagement. Next slide. Here are some key questions outside of like the mandated requirements. There were some key questions that we used as we went through the development process. And so we gathered input from a wide range of stakeholders, and they were guided by these questions, which were grounded in overall student wellness, consistency for family planning, professional learning, as well as religious holidays. And these questions were central to our decision-making process as we work to develop the calendar that ultimately needs to support student success. Next slide. Okay, so our stakeholder engagement. We conducted extensive engagement, including town halls, surveys, meetings with students, families, staff, community partners, including our faith leaders. And you'll note that we held 2 sessions with our religious leaders, and we acknowledged that there were technical glitches during the initial session with our faith leaders. And so we offered a second opportunity. And what I'll share is that in both opportunities, we were able to have a successful, productive conversation, gaining valuable insight into their perspectives and also just current priorities that they wanted us to consider in the process. Next slide. So we're going to jump into the specific feedback that we got across our stakeholders, and I'll share that you'll see a recurrent theme from our stakeholders around the need for overall wellness, time for staff to complete grading responsibilities and other administrative tasks, as well as school readiness. Next slide. So we received responses from almost 1,500 staff members highlighting key priorities in wellness, grading responsibilities, and school readiness, as well as ending the school year as early as possible. So you'll see those as the top 3 priorities that were indicated across the staff members that responded to our survey. Next slide. Out of 125 principals surveyed, the top priorities were grading responsibilities, school-based professional learning, and school readiness. Next slide. And here we have an overview of the POSSIP survey that we conducted with parents. And if you're not familiar with POSSIP, that is a way for our families to respond via text to a short scripted question that's sent out to them. And we are thankful that we received over 8,000 responses. And parents' top priorities were wellness, grading, and ending the year as early as possible. Okay, so our community members identified wellness, school readiness, and grading as their top priorities, and you can see the percentages indicated on the chart. Next slide. Thank you. And then finally, our student feedback. Students overwhelmingly requested more wellness days and expressed concerns about extending the school year into the summer. They also shared that they felt the impact of making up missed work if they were absent for religious observance days. And so you can see the anecdotal feedback that we received from our students in our engagement with pertinent student groups. The common theme among our student group, as well as our engagement with our religious groups, was the need to enhance our practices around religious observances by increasing awareness and cultural sensitivity, as well as proactive accommodations within schools. And so as Simon goes into our current religious observance practices, you will note that there are some key enhancements that we have embedded in our practices moving forward to ensure that we are taking a proactive stance and that our families are not bearing the burden of reminding school staff of our particular guidance. And so we want to make sure that we have systems in place to make sure that we are in a proactive space in supporting and acknowledging religious observances. So now I'm going to hand it over to Simon, who is going to discuss religious observances as I shared, and then share the calendar recommendation.
Thank you, Dr. Swintonbach. So first of all, for our current guidelines for students who are participating in religious observance days, the first thing to know is that students who participate in a religious observance day and have to miss a day of school, that's considered an excused absence. Students who bring a note in from their families when they return or before they leave, can have those absences excused, no matter what your religion is and no matter what the holiday you're celebrating is. And so, whatever accommodations we make for any excused absences get made for religious observance as well. In addition to those sort of individual attendance-based things for individual students, we also ask schools to consider certain religious observance days in these three categories here. Tests and examinations, where we ask schools to not schedule tests, whether that's school-wide tests like the MCAP or SATs, or if they're individual teacher tests like tests and quizzes in your classrooms. We ask schools not to schedule evening events or field trips, and we also ask schools not to schedule extracurricular, athletic, or community events. We're asking schools not to schedule things like back to school night or parent teacher conference nights, end of quarter awards day celebrations, things like that. We work with our athletic department to make sure that we're trying to schedule around religious observance holidays as much as possible. In general, we ask schools to make sure that students don't miss out, students or families don't miss out on any sort of one-time opportunity events that they wouldn't get to participate in otherwise. We want students to have to make that decision between participating in those events and participating in their religious observance as little as possible, and to minimize that as little as possible. All right, next slide. As we were thinking about the calendar, we looked at surrounding LEAs in Maryland to sort of see how they handled the various holidays, specifically 2 Jewish holidays and 2 Muslim holidays of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Eid al-Fitr, and Eid al-Adha. It's a very difficult to gain a lot of information because the sample size is so small. If you look at Eid al-Adha, for example, you can see that in 23-24, it took place after the end of the school year, and then this year it's taking place on a Saturday. So we just don't have the information widespread for how our surrounding counties have dealt with Eid al-Adha as a holiday in regards to calendar. And you can see for the other holidays, again, with a small sample size, you can see sort of a mixed outcomes for how they're addressing each of the different holidays. And again, if a holiday appears on a Saturday one time, it's hard to come up with a trend necessarily, but it does give us a picture of school districts who are making different types of decisions, on these holidays throughout the last 2 school years. Next slide. One of the ways that we looked internally as best we could at how our students and our families are responding on these holidays is we did pull attendance data around Yom Kippur and Eid al-Fitr for the last 2 years. Obviously, like Rosh Hashanah and Eid al-Adha were on Saturdays, so we couldn't pull that information. And you can see the day of the holiday is in red there, and then the surrounding days, school days, are in blue. One thing to note is that September 25th, when Yom Kippur was a Monday, and we see a dip in attendance in general on Mondays and Fridays. And so you can see that there is a dip in attendance on Yom Kippur that happened on a Monday, I believe. But the day, the school day before that on a Friday had a very similar attendance rate right there. So it could be that sort of typical Monday and Friday dip that we see. And we see the same thing for Eid al-Fitr. That took place on a Wednesday. So you can see the attendance for student attendance each day for that school week. You can see there is a small dip there in attendance on that Wednesday, especially compared to the day before. But there's also bigger dips that we see on Mondays and Fridays. So we saw maybe a slight impact on attendance for these 2 holidays, but not as big of a dip as we see on sort of a typical Monday or Friday. Next slide, please. Based on all of the information that we could gather, all the feedback that we heard, and the quantitative data that we could gather, and considering all of the feedbacks and factors, our recommendation is to continue our current practices around the school calendar in relation to religious observance days. Next slide. However, in speaking with various stakeholders, especially speaking with the students, we did find a lot of places where we can help improve the experience for students who do take off school to celebrate their religious holidays. And so we're listing our next steps and our recommendations here. So we'd like to partner with the school's office to make sure that we're pushing information about observance days more proactively so that schools in their planning stages can be thinking about these holidays even earlier and sort of more front of mind. Publish regular reminders in our school leader updates so that schools aren't just getting that information once, but they're getting it throughout. School leaders aren't just getting the information once, but they're getting it throughout the year. Providing reminders to teachers directly through various channels, including through the Infinite Campus Message Center. Recommending that we update the field trip regulations to include explicit exclusions of observance days. So the field trip forms are part of board regulations, and so making sure that we're recommending adjusting those so that it's listed in the forms themselves, sort of what the days are, and that field trips shouldn't be offered on those days. Publishing observance days directly in the assessment calendar so that when schools are planning their assessments, they can have those days in mind. One thing that we'd like to do is commit to reviewing the MSDE's list of observance days, the list of days that we sort of publish publicly to say, think about these observance days, is the list of holidays that we receive from MSDE. It's their list, and we take that and adopt that ourselves. But we're committed to at least considering adding days either from other faiths or other Jewish or Muslim holidays possibly as well, to consider increasing the number of days that we as a system are observing as observance days. And also consulting with local faith leaders to verify the dates of observance. This is especially true for our Muslim holidays because those holidays, we have estimations for when those are, but it's the local faith leaders who make final decisions closer to the date. And so just making sure that we are in consultation with those local faith leaders to make sure that when City Schools is putting out a date, that it's the date that's matching what our community is observing. Thank you. Next slide. Okay. So this is what our proposed calendar is going to look like, or it looks like for school year 25-26. Next slide. This is a calendar that's focused on student learning and making sure that teachers and students can build relationships while also thinking about what were the students asking for in the calendar, which was sort of a wellness days and opportunities for small breaks. And so we've tried to take our feedback and put that into practice here in this calendar. I'm going to go through each of the sort of different aspects of this calendar in a lot more detail on the following slides. If you'd like to just take your phone out real quick and just take a little snap of that picture of this calendar so that you can refer to it when we come back to it, it might be helpful for you. I'll talk a little bit here. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do it. But as you can see, as you go through here, some of the changes that you'll see are only having 4 professional learning days before the school year starts so that we can have an additional one throughout the year. Remember that a professional learning day for staff is experienced for students and families as a wellness day for them. We've tried to put any sort of alterations to the schedule to make those on Fridays so that we are not sort of taking off in the middle of the week. And we've tried to make sure that that we have our professional learning days scheduled at sort of regular intervals to make it a little bit easier for families to know exactly when those days are going to be. So you'll see that when we do have choices about professional learning days, those days are on the first Friday of various months throughout the year. With that in mind, if you've got your picture taken, we're ready to move on to the next slide, and I'll talk a little bit more about these things in more detail. For this calendar, staff will return on a Tuesday instead of on a Monday. That's a slight change, and the reason is so that we can make sure that we're having more professional learning throughout the year. Our first day of school is the traditional return date of the Monday before Labor Day. This year it would be August 25th. Thanksgiving break happens on Thanksgiving, and we're proposing to continue to have the day before Thanksgiving continue to be a wellness day. Winter break would go from December 24th to January 4th. The length is actually the same as the length of the current school year's winter break, but we are not having students come back on Friday, January 2nd. because that would have just been 1 day back after break and then you're out for the weekend again. So we're having break start a little bit later, but also end a little bit later than normal. Spring break is the same length as this current school year as well. You have our senior graduation days in June. The last day of school, if there's no inclement weather, will be Tuesday, June 9th. And nicely, hopefully, if there are inclement weather days, they will be done by the additional days that we add at the end will be done by Friday, June 12th. And that would mean that we would know that we wouldn't come back after that weekend like we might have to do for this current school year. So it would be nice to know that at least that weekend will definitely be after the last day of school, the weekend of June 13th and 14th. Next slide. Here's our list of religious observances and the days that they are. Again, this is the list of holidays that the state MSDE has put out for us to sort of start from. I just want to remind everybody that we're committing to doing a review of our holidays to see if this is the list that's right for our community. You can notice also that the Muslim holidays here have 2 stars on them as a reminder that we will double check with our local Muslim leaders to make sure that those are the correct days. Next slide. These are our holiday breaks. You can see that when winter break is and when all of the secular holidays are as well. The winter break and spring break are actually exactly the same number of days as they are for the current school year. So no change there, although just sort of the date has been shifted back a little bit. Next slide, please. We are proposing having 1 wellness day added to the calendar. That wellness day will be the day before Thanksgiving to extend Thanksgiving break so that everyone can do a little bit of travel or a little bit of cooking, house cleaning as needed. I know that the current school year has 2 wellness days. We don't have that second wellness day for the upcoming school year proposed, but we are proposing adding an additional professional learning day throughout the year. And so students will experience that as a wellness day. So they'll experience the same number of days. Next slide. Here are our systemic professional development days. These are the 10 days that are required under our contractual commitment to BTU. The date in October is a statewide professional learning opportunity, and we honor that by giving our BTU and other members opportunities to participate in that statewide learning. And then you can see for the district-led PD throughout the year, each of those 5 days are on the first Friday of the month, so that families can have the consistency to know that they know that it's always going to be on a Friday. They know it's going to be the first Friday of the month for these months. So even though we aren't creating the sorts of long weekends like we have coming up this coming weekend, what we will have is hopefully for families the consistency that they're looking for, so that they aren't sort of looking for childcare in sort of random places, but can know up front exactly when it's going to be needed. We're proposing keeping the same number of early release days as we have in the current calendar. That includes 1 early release day in the fall for parent-teacher conferences, and then 4 early release days on the last day of each quarter to continue the practice that we have this year of giving teachers time for grading, grade entering, and grade correcting at the end of each quarter. This helps students because it means that students are able to continue working every single day of the quarter all the way up to the end doing work. It helps teachers because it gives them time to be able to do grading, to grade work that comes in, to encourage students to be doing reassessment and turning in work. It gives administrators a peace of mind because they know that they have time to follow up with teachers during that early release day to make sure that they have the grades in and done correctly. And the goal here is that report cards go out on time and that they go out correct the first time without having to make changes and things like that. And so our goal here is to make sure that everyone has that opportunity to take care of the grading tasks as we saw, was one of the high priorities for staff, both principals and teaching staff. Next slide. Our parent-teacher conferences will be in the following windows. We're aligning the parent-teacher conferences for quarters 2 through 4 with the release of progress reports for those quarters. That means that it's an opportunity for teachers and parents to have discussion around sort of a student has been in the class long enough during that quarter to have a significant amount of work, and for the teacher to get to know the student well enough to be able to speak intelligently and meaningfully about the work that the student has been doing, but early enough in the quarter that there's still opportunities for students to make improvements based on making that stronger connection between school and home, so that students still have the opportunity to improve work habits and whatever else needs to be done in order to make sure that they're doing well leading into the rest of the quarter. Next slide. We're proposing again that we have 3 inclement weather days, and like the current school year, if we go past those 3 inclement weather days, the 4th day and beyond would then be virtual. That is a proposal. It's the same way that we have it for the current school year. But of course, this is our proposal, but it is pending approval from MSDE. They approved it for this year. We anticipate them approving it for the following year, but it's not something that we have total control over. So we do have to have that asterisk there. You can see here the quarter dates. One thing to make note of here is that, excuse me, is that each of the quarters for the proposed calendar is a different number of days. The reason for this is because we wanted to make sure that the early release day on the last day of each quarter was on a Friday. The current school year, we have one of our early release days at the end of first quarter. I believe it was on a Tuesday or Wednesday. And so we wanted to make sure that any early release days or professional learning days that we had were on Fridays, so that families weren't scrambling for midweek coverage, childcare for their families. We found that having that early release day on a Friday was the sort of the most convenient way for families to experience those early release days. And so even though it means that there's a slightly different number of days in each of the quarters, we found this sort of accommodation to be important enough to go ahead and do, to make sure that that it was to make sure that families had the opportunity to have that early release on a Friday as opposed to the middle of the week. For our trimester schools here, this is what the trimester dates would look like. You don't see the same accommodation here about the Fridays because the trimester schools don't have the same early release days, or if they do, it's a part of their SBO process in application. Next slide. And at the end here, I want to return to the key questions that Dr. Swinton-Buck asked at the beginning and reflect on them again. So how can our calendar reflect feedback from stakeholders around need for wellness? Our professional learning, putting our professional learning days throughout the year creates those opportunities for students and staff to focus on wellness by having these regular opportunities for students, especially, to step away from their, the regular routine of the school. And to have those spaced out throughout the year at regular intervals, we think is most beneficial for student wellness. How does our calendar reflect feedback on scheduling closures and early release days? We put all of our, anytime we had the option, we put those early release days or our professional learning days on Fridays, so that we were making sure that we weren't creating sort of one day you're there, then the next day you're out, then you're back to school again. And to make sure that those early release days were bumped up against the end of the week as well. And we tried to make the professional learning days at predictable intervals for families as well. How can our calendar provide opportunities for professional learning and parent-teacher conferences and timely completion of educator responsibilities? Those opportunities are all laid out throughout the calendar, including those early release days at the end of quarters for teachers to accomplish those tasks, grading tasks. And how can we acknowledge and respect religious holidays? Our proposal is to strengthen guidance and communication practices to ensure that school staff are working proactively to plan school and classroom opportunities with all religious communities in mind. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions or comments, we are happy to listen.
Thank you so much. I want to thank the entire team for the presentation this evening. And I want to turn it over to my board colleagues who may have questions on the proposal. And I just want to remind our board colleagues that this is the CEO's recommendation for the calendar for this particular year. We aren't voting tonight, rather next board meeting on, February 25th. Any questions from board colleagues?
Chair, this is Commissioner Mohammed. I have several. I'll start with stating last year this time, during this board meeting introducing the school calendar, we had the Muslim community come out in such a way that the board followed that meeting, making them a recognized group. Under my term as a commissioner, this is the first time that I've seen a group come out to the number of 50 people where we had to extend our area for community members to be at a public board meeting. We made a commitment after that day to continue to work with the community to assure that this is addressed in a way where we work towards their ask. And their ask at that time was to have a day off.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Was to have a day off for the Eid. What challenges me is that we held a community listening effort. We engaged stakeholders, and it came to the board that this recognized group, Northern Muslim community, was engaged until the end. And at that point, that group was informed by another group that was participating in one of these sessions. So I'm not comfortable with the way we went about getting full participation with our stakeholders, particularly because we made this a recognized group, and the recognized group that we established was never engaged. With that said, when it comes to this Eid holiday, this day being recognized by school systems, I understand why there would be some challenge. But I want to make it clear to all of us as a community, all of us as a staff, and particularly my fellow board members, that this is not something new. That Philadelphia has established this for a long period of time, but we have cities like New York Public Schools who established recognizing Eid holiday as a day off for their school system in 2015. In Detroit Public Schools, they did the same in 2019. And as far as Vermont, it was done in Burlington in 2010. But if we want to get local, I'll use the information that you provided. In Baltimore County, just our neighbors, they use the day as a professional learning day. In Montgomery County, they use the day as a day to close schools for grading. In Howard County, it's used as a professional learning day. And in Frederick County, the board had the audacity to unanimously vote to close schools for the Eid holidays. With this said, a precedent has been set. It's for us as a board to recognize who our community members are and what they're asking for. And we did that last year. And I think that we've made efforts to communicate on what our community members need without actually talking to those community members who came to us last year to start this conversation. So my question remains, how do we assure that we're hearing from those who came to us last year and engage them as the board has established them as a recognized group? Have we been in contact with that recognized group? And is there support needed from the board to be able to follow up?
Let me ask Chief Dabrowski if you may address that particular comment.
Yep, actually, Chief High Cupboard is here because she helped us with this work. So I see her coming on right now. Yes.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Commissioner Mohammed. I'm happy to jump in quickly. So I have to be honest with you, I'm not aware of what a recognized group means by the board, so I would love clarification on that. And the meetings that we held were with faith leaders, not community groups, for that population of conversation, right? So it was Act Now, who is a partner of ours with mixed faith. It's Muslim, Jewish, and Christian faiths, that we tried to get leaders from those groups to come and speak. And we had about 2 representatives from each group in our sessions. And what I would like to offer is, once I can learn more what a recognized group is, I'm happy to have a different conversation. We can do a community meeting, but a community meeting is different than a faith leaders meeting, which is what we put forward as part of the community feedback that was received tonight that Dr. Swinton-Buck presented this evening. So given that this isn't a vote this evening, if we need to have another group around community, because the faith leaders meeting was one portion of the larger engagement. I know that both Dr. Swinton-Buck and Simon Birnbaum did, larger community conversations, parents, et cetera. And we were hoping that, folks would join in those meetings. But if we need to have a separate community meeting, we are more than happy to come out and do that in between now and when the board votes to get additional feedback into that conversation. And I do just want to apologize so folks are aware, the Zoom link that we provided was broken when we were meeting, and so we had to hurry up and sort of fix that in our first meeting. So we did offer a second meeting, and I did look back at some of the testimony of who was speaking in the March meeting, Commissioner Mohammed, and those gentlemen were included into the other 2 meetings that we did have. So, but we are, again, more than happy to have another community conversation if necessary to make sure we are getting our outreach broader and more wide.
And given what Chief High Cupboard just shared, I think there's a couple points there that are worthwhile having additional conversation, not in this forum today regarding, but I'm hoping that this preliminary set of information may be helpful in addressing or beginning to address Commissioner Mohammed's concerns. Commissioner Mohammed, did you want to lift up anything additional this evening? Just things that the staff could take back, given that we have some additional time before this comes to the board for vote.
No, I appreciate the insight and would take advantage of the opportunity to connect you with the individuals who are also faith leaders who established the recognized group for the board in the following days.
Thank you. Are there additional questions or comments from my board colleagues this evening?
Yeah, can I be recognized, Chair?
Sure, yes.
Just a couple of quick rapid fire questions. First of all, just thank you all so much. I know how much thought has gone into this. Building a calendar is not easy, and I appreciate the outreach and the attention to all of the different variables that you need to have. In my experience, it's hard to make everybody happy with the calendar choices. So I understand the difficult choices you have, and I appreciate that we have some time for some back and forth. Very quick, a couple quick questions just for my information about how many of our schools are trimester schools. Simon, you mentioned the trimester school calendar. Just roughly, I don't need exact numbers, but roughly percentage-wise.
Maybe 10.
Maybe 10. Okay, it's very small. Okay, perfect. And then the other question was around confirming that excused absences don't have any bearing on students applying to our criterion-based schools at the middle school or at the high school level, that if you have an excused absence, it's not counted in any way or held against you in any way. Is that correct?
I am not sure of the answer to that question.
You may not be the right person to ask that.
No, actually, I don't know if Chief High Hubbard, in terms of the choice process, if attendance, how that gets weighed in or not, but we can certainly look into that, unless Chief High Hubbard.
It does
sorry.
not.
Yeah, I didn't think it did.
Attendance is not included, and the reason actually why attendance is not included is because of religious observance. We have no way of sort of discerning why a student might be out for a religious observance, or they're just excused absences is how they're coded. And so it could be an illness, it could be a religious observance. And so for that reason, to honor the diversity of our students, we've actually taken attendance out of the equation for choice.
Excellent. Thank you. And then just a question around the state regulations in terms of, I understand the number of days we need to have. Are there, I do also understand, I saw some of the feedback around not wanting to extend the school year on the part of certain folks, but are there guidelines, either contractual with our union or with the state, that would prevent us from extending the school year, or is this merely a preference thing?
So there are not any state regulations that we have seen in terms of how long the school year goes. What we do know, again, goes back to attendance. And when we track attendance, after Memorial Day, we start to see a dip. And then after the first week in June, we see another significant dip. So we know that school attendance starts to hover below 80% at the further we go in June. So that's, I think, the other space we try to lean into in terms of the quality of student learning. In June is not as robust as, say, as in October and into the earlier part of the year.
I appreciate that. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think one thing that I always try to weigh is, given the data around summer learning loss and how much time, this is just a cultural thing across the entire United States, how much time our kids are gone from school in the summer, weighing that against what you said with the attendance things, and it's it's in large part it's cultural, but it's something to consider. But I don't think it's something to really belabor for this year's calendar conversation. Just something for us to think about in the grand scheme of things. And then the only other question I had was around the dates of the early release dates in the calendar, just to make sure that I understood that part properly. So there are 5 early release dates. One coincides with fall parent-teacher conferences, and the other 4 coincide with the Friday following the end of a quarter, or on the quarter in some cases. And that's how we've done the early release days, and that's the rationale, correct?
The end of quarter early release days are on the official last day of the quarter. So
all the quarters end on Friday. I didn't have time to line up those
yes,
days.
all the quarters are scheduled to end on a Friday. That's correct.
Is that how we did it this year as well?
No, this year we had one first quarter ended on a Tuesday or a Wednesday this year. So this year we did have an early release day in the middle of the week, and we're looking to make it more convenient for families by pushing that early release date to all the way to the Friday.
So that's okay, based on feedback from families. And then the feedback, I promise the last question. I appreciate you all. I tried to make them quick. What is the feedback that you get from teachers around the district about those early release days and their utility? Do they find them to be really useful on at the end of the quarter? Is that something that teachers have generally said is really important to them? I'm just curious what the feedback is.
I think teachers greatly appreciate the opportunity for completing administrative tasks whenever possible. And so I know that teachers have a lot of work to do, and I greatly respect all the work that teachers do. And I think that this is a really important one for making sure that we're setting aside time to make sure that they have it done correctly and then they have it done on time.
Great, great. But specifically, I agree with everything you said. Teachers need more time to do all of the things that we put on their plate. Absolutely. But specifically, do teachers report saying that it is most helpful on the last Friday of the quarter?
It's not, so I'll jump in, Commissioner. I don't think it's specific to the Friday, but I think what I showed in the feedback is that teachers want that time for administrative tasks that is closely related to the end of the quarter, because it gives them uninterrupted time to follow up on grading and making sure that their grade books and we're reporting accurately to families. It also gives space for school leaders to kind of do that double check before things are submitted and making sure that we're communicating to families accurately. So it's not specific to a Friday, it's specific to the flow of the quarter and how we're making, how we're reporting our data to families.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Okay, I'm done. Thanks.
No problem. Any additional questions from board colleagues this evening? Hearing none.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
please.
Thank you. Couple of things I wanted to clarify here, and I think that Commissioner Mohammed did an excellent job of showing the precedence of LEAs or districts throughout the country and locally that have really taken fully into consideration the demographic profile of their communities. And there seems to be a great push or move toward maintaining a level of consistency. Maybe is a word, but business as usual is another way of saying that. I want to know whether or not, and I do want a deeper dive into understanding our community profile, which is changing. It's gotten to be more diverse. It's gotten to be more inclusive. As we look at religious holidays, which has constantly been mentioned during the presentation, we're finding that we do not really look at religious holidays, except that they look like whatever we have been doing. I kind of find a little bit disturbing there in that we haven't adjusted, in my mind, my vision, to the changing profiles of our community when other LEAs right next to us and all around us have looked at that and have included that. So that's a comment more than a need for a response. As far as a recognized group is concerned, what defines a recognized group has not been really codified, because I see recognized groups put forward, and it depends on who's recognizing them at the time. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta-Bay. May I move to Commissioner Esposito, who has her hand up, and then I'll come back to Commissioner Mohammed.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a quick question for folks that may have feedback that aren't a part of the group that would know about a possible meeting in between now and the vote. What would be the best asynchronous way for folks to submit feedback regarding the calendar?
We had an online survey, Commissioner Esposito, that was open for quite a while, and we also dropped it into the chat for the meetings. So, I know the team has done a tremendous lift of culminating that information. I'm not sure they're willing to be able to open that up again, but we did have that open for months, where folks could also write in, to your point, of an asynchronous way to give feedback. But I don't know, Dr. Swinton-Buck, what we should do about that one. But we could also invite the folks, we could have that form in the chat for the meeting as well, and folks could fill it out there. But I'm just curious.
Yes, certainly happy to open it up and receive, review additional feedback, and happy to engage with other community members who feel like they were, not a part of the initial conversations that we held since October.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Esposito. Commissioner Mohammed, did you have your hand up again? You're on mute.
Sorry, I'll lend my hand to Commissioner Coy. You can come back to me after.
Commissioner Coy?
One question that I have, what steps are we taking to ensure that school board meetings don't fall on various religious holidays? As I recall, earlier in 2024, so last year when we were voting on this, it was actually on Eid al-Fitr that we voted on the calendar last time.
So I can take that on. So, the board is responsible for the development of our board calendar, and certainly we do work with our colleagues on the other side of that, and so that is something that we do need to look into really carefully. And I really appreciate you lifting that up. So that is really on the board to make sure the board calendar is one that reflects the days that are most available for our community and for our board. But I do appreciate you lifting that up. Commissioner Mohammed?
Yeah, so one of the things that stands out is that Eid, when we look at the calendar, kind of falls near some of the half days. We want to look at, or if we can receive data around the impact of the half days with regards to attendance. So if we could receive that, what does attendance look like on half days, extending, I guess, Commissioner Lallinger's request, that would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, we actually, Commissioner Amahata, is a great question. Early release days typically have lower attendance. When I first began doing the calendar 4 years ago, we were doing upwards of 10 to 12 early release days a year, and we realized it was really having an impact on our overall attendance rates, which is why we've gone to having only 5. Because the attendance does look much lower on those days. We've pulled the data before. We can certainly pull it again or bring it back to the board for your review, but I can tell you it will be lower on those early release days.
Thank you.
Awesome. Did I get everybody? I'm sorry, team, sometimes it's difficult to see everybody's hands. Are any additional comments from board colleagues?
I was wondering about the parent feedback for early release days as well. I can't imagine days like today work out well for parents for half days.
If we've collected that, Dr. Swittenbach, could we share that back with the board?
Sure. Yep, absolutely.
So it sounds like from here in this conversation between now and when the vote comes on the 25th, there's an opportunity for the board to receive just some additional clarification to support the recommendation from the CEO that will be helpful in the board making a final determination on the 25th. So we look forward to getting and receiving those responses. All right, I'm going to move us forward. I'm sorry. Any other?
Chair, just a quick process question, Chair. So that's an up or down vote, or is it? What is the? Can you tell us about the vote in 2 weeks and how that looks?
Yeah. So the board can either up or down that vote. The board can also amend the recommendation from the CEO if they so choose, and go with another option for the staff to pursue. So those are the 3 pathways I believe that are possible. Any additional questions? All right, I want to push us forward to our last presentation of the evening. This is from the pipeline work update on principal support and development. I'd like to turn it over to Tracy Durant to lead us through this conversation.
Good evening. Oops, probably don't have sound. Good evening, commissioners, Chair Sally, Dr. Santelises, members of the board and the public. I'm actually going to turn the presentation over to Tracy Frazier, who is the Director of Educator Pipelines and Induction.
Thank you, Dr. Durant. Good evening, good snowy evening, everyone. Chair Sally, Dr. Santelises, and members of the board. My name is Tracy Frazier. I'm the Director of Educator Pipelines and Induction, and I am here to share some updates about our principal pipeline work, so you can get a glimpse of where we are and where we're going. So let's start with the leadership pipeline at a glance. So our mission and vision, our goal for our department and the work that we do is to equip early career leaders to lead and who are committed to long-term success in Baltimore City schools. Our work is aligned to board strategic priority 2 and also the portrait of a graduate. This is my phenomenal team under the leadership of Dr. Durant. I'm going to give everybody a shout out: Nakia Carter, Tatum Daniels, Dr. McKelly Dunn, and Sam Rather. These are our senior principal coaches. All of them support our early career leaders through professional development and coaching. They are also all certified diversity coaches through the International Coaching Federation. Okay, so this year actually marks the 5-year milestone since this department has, been together as we know it today. But it's a little different. So I'm going to take you on this table just a little bit of a journey through where we were and where we are now. And mind you, the Wallace Grant that we were awarded was awarded in school year 2021-2022. So this actually starts the year before the grant was awarded. We started off in the Office of Human Capital. Now we currently sit in the Office of Equity. We also started with 2 coaches. I was actually one of the coaches back then. We had an AP coach and a coach for principals. Now this year we have 4 coaches. And all of the coaches have been certified as diversity coaches, which supports the work that we do with our equity-centered principals. Through extending our reach, we went from developing 104 early career leaders to now supporting 176. And that large growth in number is mainly because we've increased our number of coaches, and we were able to extend our support from not just supporting first and second year assistant principals and principals, but now we support first, second, and third year assistant principals and principals. Back in 2020, we had a partnership with New Leaders, and they developed our residents through the residency program. And we are happy to say that this year we have launched our inaugural cohort of our city schools residency program. And this was born out of our landscape analysis through our Wallace work, and our principals said that they wanted a city schools residency. And having a residency, it allows us to provide support that they need that's tailored to Baltimore City schools. We've aligned our support to the leadership framework. We've included equity as a focus in our development. And something that's really unique about iLead is our focus on mental health and wellness. We know that principals often burn out. Their task is heavy. And so we want to provide them with those tools to make sure that they're taking care of themselves so that they can lead healthy lives, family and work lives. Another interesting part of this work in 2020, our pipeline, we looked at our pipeline and starting with our first year APs. So we started with year 1 APs all the way through principalship. But what we realized through our Wallace work and visiting other districts and just growing as a team is that the pipeline starts before the assistant principalship. And so we've engaged in work with our university partners, Towson University and Morgan. We work closely with them, engage with their cohorts, their students who are in those Admin One programs. And then we also, through our Equity Week that we have every year, last year we had a paraprofessionals day. And so they were able to come out. We invited our university partners. And I believe we had one person who enrolled in one of our university programs just from having that exposure. So we want to continue to build that pipeline and grow it. And ultimately, I would love for us to be able to start with our students in our high schools and engage their interest in those who are interested in teaching and working in schools and start there. That's a goal. And then lastly, in 2020, 30% of our residents were placed as principal, and we were happy to announce last year 100% of our residents were placed as principal, and we're hoping we'll have the same results this year. Some other milestones that are worth mentioning, the Aspiring Leaders Information Sessions. This is something we started last year in the fall. We had one session, and this was to gauge, inform folks who expressed interest in leading in city schools. That first event, we had over 80 participants join us. They were able to learn about the pathway to principalship, and they also learned about the different programs that we've offered. This year, we've extended that Aspiring Leader session to 2 sessions, and we're also having it on a Saturday so that we can get more people to come, and also some external candidates as well. The Emerging Leaders cohort, this year we have 9 emerging leaders. Last year we had 5 emerging leaders, and the year before we didn't have any emerging leaders because this is a program that we have partnered with New Leaders for. The program existed some years back, but we needed to bring it back because we saw that our leaders and aspiring leaders needed another layer of support. And so we've brought back the Emerging Leaders program to give them that year in their seat. We have lead teachers, there are EAs, there are some assistant principals in that program, and we're helping to develop their leadership skills from the seat that they're currently in. We also have our individual leadership roadmaps, and this is like an individual learning plan for folks who are in our leadership pipeline. Everyone who goes through an assessment center who are internal, they have a leadership roadmap, people who express interest in leadership. Not only do we visit them through pipeline engagement visits, but we develop a roadmap that's a 3-year plan of how to reach their leadership goals. So we have some people who are interested in the residency this year. We have some people who are like, I'm ready for principalship, and they meet eligibility, and they're interested in principalship. So then we guide them in that direction for assessment center. This is proved to be very helpful, so we can target our support, and then we know who's in our pipeline and on the bench. The other thing we're really proud of is our principal selection cross-office collaboration, which we affectionately call the CoLab. And we work together with different offices, schools, HC, communications, and we work together to develop the profiles for our leaders, develop the selection process for our school leaders, and make sure that we're speaking the same language, and determine the right fit for our schools here in the city. And then lastly, our university cohort engagement and collaboration. As I mentioned, probably 2 weeks ago, we had a program called The Bridge, and that is the University to City Schools Bridge for Aspiring Leaders. So we pushed into one of their classes. Those students were able to present to us their end-of-year projects, and we were able to engage with them and do roadmaps with each one of them to see where they are and how we can support them in their leadership journey to city schools. current state of our pipeline. So these are our 4 core program offerings. We start with our summer induction. It's in July. We call this Cycle 0. And this is it's a week long, well, 4 days. And this is when we give them all those foundational skills and learning that they need before they set foot in their building. Before they even engage in that process. Well, part of that process is IRES, and that's our Introduction to Racial Equity Seminar, which many of you are familiar. That is their first stop for induction. So they spend 2 days in IRES, and then they join us for the remainder of induction. We also invite our cabinet members to come and introduce themselves and tell us how their departments can support their leadership. This year, we were all in the same location. And that's something that we want to continue to do, is have everyone together. We also provide coaching. We also have our Talent Development Tuesday, which is our monthly professional development for first, second, and third year APs and principal. It is the first and second Tuesday of the month. So first years are the first Tuesday, second and third years are the second Tuesday. And these professional development sessions are aligned to the leadership framework. And then we have our pipeline engagement visits, which I mentioned earlier, and those are visits. It is a structured process that we created a couple of years ago. We have a pipeline review team, and this team is a cross-office collaboration. We go to the schools of our pipeline candidates. We get to see them in action. We do interviews. We look at some of their documents and data, how they engage with their leadership teams. We watch them give feedback conversations to teachers, and we're able to get a profile of those leaders that are in our pipeline. We do those in the spring and in the fall. Here are the numbers that we have this year. Excuse me, we have 9 emerging leaders, we have 5 resident principals, and then there are about 25 additional candidates who are in the pipeline. Those are people who are in the pool, who may have been there at different times, have entered at different times, but there are about 25 folks in the pipeline. And then for induction, our numbers are really large. There's always a large number of assistant principals. So our assistant principal coach is working hard to meet the needs of those assistant principals. And then we have our principals, as you can see, those numbers there. So our surveys, we're always looking to see, what our impact is, and how our leaders are improving in their craft and impacting student achievement. So this first number is 64%. This is the percentage of early career principals that have increased student achievement in one or more categories. And those categories are attendance or iReady math or reading, could be graduation rate or chronic absenteeism. So 64% of our early career leaders have grown in one or more of those areas. So we wanted to highlight that. And then these last 4 numbers are the leadership framework, which is how our principals are evaluated in these 4 areas. And so they've indicated growth through our surveys. 91% said they've grown in instructional leadership. 91% have grown in talented people and developing talent. And then you see 88% in vision and engagement, and 83% in the strategic and professional management or the systems and operations. And we found this to be interesting, that the 83% was our lowest number. And it tracks because most of our support is that adaptive leadership support. And with the systems and operational management, a lot of that is technical work. And so, this has provided us an opportunity for collaborating with other district office teams to help them grow in that strategic and professional management area. And now we want you to hear from one of our, this is one of our high school assistant principals. Let me make sure that you'll be able to hear.
Good morning. My name is Brent Dawson. I am assistant principal at Edmondson Westside High School and primarily work with 9th grade. And this morning I want to talk to you a little bit about the direct support and the development that I've received through the district's Talent Development Tuesday initiative. First of all, I want to speak to just the one-on-one support that I've gotten from my coach, Coach Sam Rather. Mr. Rather has been, wow, a phenomenal and indispensable resource for me. And he visits my school monthly. He is receptive to my ideas about my coaching. He really pushes me to think about, well, what is it that you need? What specifically do you need support with? Reach out to me ahead of time so I can cater and develop these sessions to you. And he's more than delivered on that. Everything that I've asked for support with, he has been a faithful partner in trying to connect me to resources. And for that, I can't thank him enough and can't thank the support of the program enough. In terms, of Talent Development Tuesday, for me, that is a must attend on my calendar. That's something that I feel as though I can't miss unless there's truly an emergency going on in my building. From sort of the first session where new assistant principals were able to connect in July, and continuing that fellowship and cohort with some of my peers who are going through similar things to me has just been so valuable. I have partners across the district now, different assistant principals in their first years at different schools that I connect with on the weekends. You know, we check in for emotional support, but also have available throughout the week where I know that I can call them to work through technical pieces. I have actually even connected with assistant principals regarding students who I have now, who they previously had at the middle school level. And those conversations just truthfully would not have had the opportunity to develop if we were not put together in intentional spaces on Talent Development Tuesdays. The last piece that I get is really just the direct training as it relates to the leader's mindset. And these trainings happen during our Talent Development Tuesdays. Mr. Rather is very intentional about building in the importance of wellness in first-year assistant principals. And so I've been committed and faithful to my wellness goals that I established there. I keep looking down at my Eisenhower matrix for the day and what I have going on and how I can really faithfully approach this work in a way that also allows me to meet my time management goals and timelines. And so I have appreciated those tools and resources. They have been invaluable for me. And it is something that I feel I have needed so far in my first year as an assistant principal.
Great, thank you. So now some key insights, some lessons learned throughout this year. So we've had a number of challenges, but I'll just focus on three. The first one is assistant principals as instructional leaders. So oftentimes assistant principals, not in every school, but assistant principals serve in the operational and the culture and climate capacity. And so we definitely are pushing for them to have that instructional focus. Time management is always a thing oftentimes for our APs too. So, ensuring that they use that calendar, they're getting in those classrooms, they're giving feedback and doing those observations. So one thing that we've done is we're making sure that our coaching and our professional development supports the principals in providing experiences for developing their assistant principals. As principals and our whole team of coaches and myself, we're all former principals. And so we know that when you get in there and you're running your building, there's so many different moving pieces, but one piece we don't want them to forget is that they are a developer of talent and that they're developing their assistant principal. They are a coach. Through that, we also created a guiding document for assistant principal experiences. So it's a quick look for, so principals can see it and say, you know what, I need to make sure that my AP is getting this type of experience, just to broaden their leadership capacity. And then we also have a leadership symposium that happens during Equity Week. And this is focused solely on non-principal leaders. And this is another way to develop our assistant principals and their leadership capacity. Leader tracking system is something that we're working on through Wallace. For now, we're working closely with our CoLab team and developing profiles for school leaders. Having these profiles, having an LTS will help us to properly match our principals and aspiring principals to the schools in the city. And so actually now we're researching a common language for coaching and identifying leadership strengths so that we're all speaking in, that same language in terms of what are the strengths of our leaders and what does this strength mean and where does that fit and what type of school, what type of community. And then lastly, secondary school principal candidates. It's hard to find secondary school principals, and it's, it is a national concern. But what we're doing now is targeting our recruitment efforts. So the example I talked about before, like with the Bridge program, we can meet with those folks who are in those university programs and talk about secondary school leadership. It's, it can be very intimidating to lead some of these large high schools. And so we want to share information with them and encourage them, they can do it, and make sure we give them the tools to do it. And then also, we share that information in our Aspiring Leaders information session. That's actually, the spring one is March 1st. We're having our next one. So development beyond EPI, sustainability, that is our buzzword for this year. Last year it was collaboration, and we did some phenomenal collaboration. This year, sustainability. This is the 4th year of our Wallace grant. And so we're looking at how do we sustain this work, this wonderful work that we've been doing in our schools? How do we sustain that work beyond the grant? So there's 4 key things here that we've talked about. One is integrating key initiatives into district operations. So that means making some of the work that we do just standard practice. And an example is our pipeline visits. They've become a standard practice. Everyone receives a pipeline visit who are our principal candidates. So we would have seen them before they are leading a school. The other one is the ongoing collaboration with university partners. We're collaborating them around their curriculum and making sure their curriculum meets the needs of the district, and also engaging with the cohorts. And then strategic allocation of resources to prioritize leadership development. And then also building the internal capacity, making sure that there's leadership opportunities. When there are leadership opportunities that we have, we take a moment to step back and share what we've learned from those so that we're not just getting information and working in silos. We just want to build up our internal capacity to collaborate and build the talent within the district. And that's where we are. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Ms. Frazier. I really appreciate the presentation. I'm just going to note that it's been really remarkable to see the evolution of the Wallace Grant over the time that I've been on the board and seeing how the district has been able to put those resources, the funds to good use to really support pipeline development. So kudos to you guys, because this was in its infancy when I first joined the board many years ago. Commissioner Lollinger.
Thank you, Ms. Frazier. This is great work, very insightful. I want to praise you in particular for what I thought were very reflective opportunities for growth. And I think to me, that's indicative of the work that you all do and why this continues to get better, because you're thinking about how you can get better. I mean, they resonate with me a lot. I've seen assistant principals only deal with student discipline and school culture and never get to develop the instructional chops. I've seen principals who would otherwise be fantastic principals not thrive because their strengths aren't matched by by their placement schools. So I really appreciated seeing that, and I think it speaks to your the whole team's level of reflectiveness. I had a couple quick questions just because I'm trying to better understand how you all are measuring and thinking about outcomes. And I wanted to go back to the slide around that had survey says at the top. Just wanted to make sure I better understood that. The first quick question is, are these grant metrics? I mean, is this something that Wallace, is this what you submitted to Wallace? Is this how you all are sort of officially thinking about your impact and the outcomes that these folks are having?
Do you want me to take that, Dr. Durant? So I'll go ahead and take that. So these measures are our end of session and mid-year surveys of the participants. So this is their self-reported growth here. But what we have like every year are our key performance indicators, and our key performance indicators are their performance on their leadership framework. The same measures here, but we look at it at a broad scale and how they're doing over this 3-year period when they're with us. I don't, Dr. Durant, do you want to speak to the Wallace measure if this is?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Thank you for the question, Commissioner. So one of the things I think is important to note is while we are able to leverage the resources available to us from the Wallace grant, that is not dictating how we are measuring our work, right? Our key performance indicators, we have tried really hard to align to the district goals in collaboration with Chief Tosay and our ILED partners. And so this work that the team is leading, we are benefiting from the Wallace resources, but it's not dictating how we are assessing our effectiveness. And I think it's important to note that the team is highly focused on what it ultimately means for the evaluation of our school leaders and also what it means for student outcomes. So as a part of this, annually when the CEO does her kickoffs, when we are getting new data in, we are looking at that data and we are comparing it to our early career leaders to see whether or not the impact that we are expecting to have, we're actually seeing translated into outcomes for young people. Hope that answers your question.
That does. And it might just be me speaking from nonprofit world where too much of our work is dictated by the grant. So I appreciate hearing that. And that's all for now. I'd love to follow up more with either of you just to learn a little bit more about that and some of the data you've seen so far. But generally, I just really appreciate the work. It's so important. Make sure we'd be happy
to meet with you, Commissioner Redding Lollinger.
Thanks.
Any additional comments from board colleagues this evening?
Yes. Real quick question, and I may have not fully understood one thing, and that is very simply, I know that there's a national, when it comes to secondary school leadership, we really have, there's been a national struggle as far as trying to pull in. And every now and then I'll hear that the pool is somewhat shallow sometimes. And so therefore, has anybody looked, well, have you projected, because you've done some fabulous work, first of all, let me tell you, but have you projected that growth curve of secondary school leadership improving because of this? And to what degree do you think that improvement is coming down the line?
So Tracy, I can jump in first and you can feel free to add. Thank you for the question, Commissioner. So what we are doing, and that is part of the technical assistance that we're able to get from our partnership with the Wallace Foundation and also Council of Great City Schools. So we are tracking the national trend. We're also looking internally. And again, I can't say enough about the partnership that we have with Human Capital and the schools office, because we are looking at the trajectory of our own leaders. It's one of the things that we did initially in terms of our landscape analysis to better understand what was happening in district. Looking at the average time spent in schools, and then looking at how we're going to have to shore up the pool by working on the pipeline. It's one of the reasons why the opportunity that we have with the grant and with the work that EPI does has really allowed us to start to build up that pipeline. The whole goal of the Wallace grant was around pipeline development. And so I think when Tracy speaks to the work that we're doing with our university partners, that's an important entry point. The equity symposiums, the leadership symposiums, the paraeducator symposium, what we were really seeking to do is identify people at the earliest point of their career in city schools. So if someone comes in as a paraeducator and they make up their mind that they want to be a school leader, we want to be able to help chart a course for that. And so that's why that university partnership is so important. And our university partners have been really instrumental in helping us to identify interested candidates early. And so when Tracy also mentions what they're doing with pipeline, what they're doing with the leadership roadmap, it is to help people almost have a plan for how they're going to get to school leadership. And we have built in these development opportunities along the way. The other thing that I think is important to note is all of the ways that we're trying to engage people. And so Tracy mentioned a little bit about what we're doing with aspiring leaders. What we've seen in terms of interest in attending aspiring leaders information sessions like the one coming up March 1st, which we're on purpose doing on a Saturday so that people can maybe not have as many conflicts. We have seen tremendous increases in people attending the fair and people interested in emerging leaders. We've launched the emerging leaders. We're launching emerging leaders application for next year, the residency. So we're trying to build from start to finish anyone who is interested in making sure that in district, we have the capacity and really the apparatus to help people along that trajectory. And so the learning that we're getting from not just our early career leaders, but also our seasoned principals who are saying, here are some of the things I wish I knew on my road, to being a school leader. And here are some of the ways that you want to help develop people. So when they get to the point at which they are sitting before our ILEDs, our chief of schools, our CEO, our principal selection panels, they are ready to step into that seat.
Thank you. It's very much curious as the projected numerical growth that we were looking at and whether it was going to begin to fill that void, because right now there are a lot of people who are not running for secondary education leadership. That's what, but thank you, you answered the question.
Yep. And I would just add, I think it is also important to note, again, our chief of schools, Dr. Tosay, our CEO, it is a question that we are constantly being asked, who's in the pipeline right now for secondary? And if we don't have people in the pipeline, where are we going to get these people from? And so that is also an important part. I think the other thing that I'll just say is, when we have principals who want to be here, when we have principals who are getting the kind of support that they need to be effective school leaders in our district, to change outcomes for young people, what we find is they help us recruit the best people that are in other places. And so part of our method, right, is to also make sure that we are serving our current leaders well so that they will help us recruit other leaders.
Excellent, thank you. Any additional comments or questions this evening?
Just one, and actually you're starting to speak to it right now, so you're reading my mind even before I ask the question. But perhaps offline, I'd love to understand a little bit more about some of the recruitment efforts that are complementary to the Grow Our Own. Obviously this presentation was very focused, and there's so much to speak about the internal pipeline development work, and thank you for doing all of that. And I'd be interested in understanding a little bit about recruitment efforts, that also complement it.
Happy to have a follow-up discussion, Commissioner Coy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Durant, and to you, the entire team. It's exciting to see this work continue to grow across the district over the years and into the future. Have a good evening. Thank you so much. I want to move forward as we move to close out the evening. I want to turn it over to Commissioner Slater-Harrington for a board committee report on teaching and learning, which was held on February 4th.
Good evening. I just want to publicly thank Dr. Redding Lallinger for convening our Teaching and Learning Committee last week, and I want to turn it over to him to deliver our report tonight.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to just appreciate Commissioner Slater-Harrington for entrusting me to lead the committee in her absence. The committee met on February the 4th at 3:30. We got a great report from the academic office on supporting our continuum of learners, where we learned more about how City Schools is serving our multilingual language learners, our students with disabilities, and our gifted and advanced learners, including hearing about the emerging bilingual programs at Lakeland and Aurora, which is particularly relevant given our 9% year-over-year increase in multilanguage learners, as well as our work to move continuously more students to a less restrictive environment and increase the number of students taking and passing AP courses. The next meeting for teaching and learning will be on Tuesday, March 4th, where we will be getting a social studies update and hearing proposed changes to the operator renewal process, and it will be back in the very capable and great hands of our fearless leader, Commissioner Slater-Harrington. That's it from teaching and learning.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much. Speaking of meetings, our notice of upcoming meetings are operations is going to be held on Tuesday, February 18th at 10:30 a.m., which will be virtual. Our policy committee meeting will be that same day in the afternoon at 4 p.m. on the 18th. Safety and wholeness is rescheduled. I'm sorry, we have a normal committee meeting on February the 20th, and then our in-person event will be happening later in the month, I believe on the 26th. Did I get that right, Commissioner Mohammed?
That is correct, 26.
And that's going to be at Collington Square. And the Collington Square Rec Center, I'm so sorry. And then last but not least is our in-person and virtual board meeting at Digital Harbor High School. We invite everybody to join us on Tuesday, February 25th for that event. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Well, school calendar for tomorrow, I think could be mentioned here.
I'm sorry.
I do believe we have a notice out for school tomorrow, and I do want to raise that.
Oh, are you talking about school closure for tomorrow?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'm going to defer I don't have that notice in front of me, so I just want to defer to Dr. S and her team to make that announcement as appropriate.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Kenyatta Bay.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. Is there a second?
Second, Redding Lallinger.
Thank you. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Good night. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Enjoy the snow day.